Okay, so you've seen the live footage of the performance and how this would play out in a real life scenario. You've seen for once me performing this to an actual spectator. I hope that you enjoyed that. Now that we know what this is, let's talk about where you buy this, how much does it cost, and what do you get with your purchase. Now, as of the filming of this video, this is not yet released, but from what I've heard, this will be releasing through hopefully Murphy's Magic and associated retailers. So this will most likely be available from your favorite magic dealers or any of the big name companies that you are used to buying Murphy's products from. This will set you back between 30 and 40 US dollars. Again, this is filmed even before the release, but that means that the price will be set between 30 to 40 US dollars, which is around 50 to 60 Canadian dollars, depending on the initial conversions and depending on the official final price that this will be on launch, but you should expect it to be around that price. So what you get with your purchase of TRIADIC is essentially this book. So you are getting this nice, very pocket-sized book that does look exactly like what it's supposed to do. It has different poems on it, so you can see here. So every single page has a different poem. So you're going to get this poem book. It's very nicely printed. It looks exactly like what it's supposed to do. And as you saw from my presentation, I feel that this is absolutely great for having, for example, telling, oh, you've been rummaging through your attic or you've been rummaging through your old school stuff and you found this book of poems that you used to use during English class. I feel that is 100% justified because we all know whether English is your first language or you've studied English as a second language. In English class, we've all had to buy a book of poems, whether it's or fables. We've all had to have one of these, every single one of us. So this is very organic if you make the good presentation around it. So you're going to get this book and you're also going to get the instructions. The instructions are written inside the book. So in the last closing paragraphs, they will tell you the instructions in a very intuitive and innovative manner. I think it's very interesting how the instructions are in the book, which means you're never going to lose them again. And if ever you're kind of in a pickle, you can just refer to the instructions before you even perform the effect, which is very cool. So you're going to get this book with your purchase. So now that we know that, let's talk about difficulty. So how difficult is TRIADIC to perform? TRIADIC is relatively easy to perform. There's nothing really difficult here. As you saw in the performance, there's 3 technical reveals. There's the word on the first page. There's kind of the context and color of the actual poem. And then you actually have the word reveal at the end. Now, the word at the first that you get at the first line is super easy to reveal. It's going to take you maybe 10 seconds of practice and you'll be able to get it down. In terms of the actual feel and the details of the poem and the color that the spectator gets from the poem, that as well is super easy. You can really play it out. So if you're used to doing like cold reading or thinking on your feet, you can expand it so much and get different hits that are not even explained. So you can really jazz and riff around with that in order to reveal those 2 pieces of information. But those are super easy to get a grasp of as well. And the last thing, the last word is the way that they explain it in the book. And the way to reveal it is not personally my favorite. It can definitely work, but I really much prefer doing it as a hangman game because the method I feel works much better in that sense because you can prove that you are a pro at hangman and you never lose at hangman. And not only that, you show a really cool ability that you have, but you also reveal the word in what I feel personally a cleaner manner. But they do give you alternative versions of how to reveal that final word, but that is extremely easy as well. So overall, I think with like 5 minutes of practice, anyone can be able to do this without any issues. There's nothing to see. So what's really nice with this book as well is that there's no need for you to peek anything. You can be facing with your back. You can, even if you want to buy one for if you have an extremely special client, you can actually ship this to them in their home country and do this effect over Zoom to them while they're actually holding the book in another continent. Or you can even do this through the phone to someone. So you can ship this to someone's house, have them call you up, and you do the effect through the phone. So that is what's really, really, really cool about this book, is that you can have your back turned. You do not need to touch or fondle with anything. And what's also cool is that at a quick inspection, you don't really see anything that's untoward. For example, even when I got this, I didn't know that the instructions were at the end of the book. I inspected it. I was looking to see if there's a gimmick. I was looking to see if there's like a Sven type book or if it's marked in certain ways, but it is completely normal. I'm honest to God, I did not see the secret of how this works at first glance, which is very, very cool and makes it super easy to do as well. So now let's talk about practicality. So how practical is Triadic to perform? Now, in its simplest sense, all you need to perform Triadic is the book. Now, if you want to do the last reveal of the hangman and you want to do it a bit more visual on a notepad or on a piece of paper, on a book or anything like that, then you will need that specific item in order to do it as well. However, if you want, you can also do this verbally. So it's not going to be as powerful and the method may be a bit more apparent if you're doing it verbally, but I do think that it can still be done verbally. So in most cases, you can actually just carry around this book and do the effects, all of the 3 stages of the effects without any issues with just the book. But I do think that carrying around some extra knickknacks like a pen or a paper or a pad is going to help you out a bit with the end reveal. And you could also, if you want, what I like with this is you can very much use this to also do different types of things. So if you think about the effects that you can do with this book, once you know the methods, you can do maybe a drawing duplication at certain instances. For example, the second part where you get the feeling and the color of the poem, you could maybe have them associate that color, because normally they don't know, associate that color with the first image that pops in their head or the first object that pops in their head, and you can use that as a drawing duplication. You could use that as a springboard to other things. So you can actually mix and match the way that some of these phases work in order to play the effect in different directions, which will require you to use less or more props depending on that. In terms of angles, this is 360. As I mentioned, you can even do this across a continent through Zoom. This can, in terms of inspectability, this can be inspected. I wouldn't let someone read every single poem or inspect every single page carefully, but at a quick inspection, it will fly by. In terms of reset, it has an instant reset. In terms of a table, you do not need a table whatsoever for this. And lastly, what we can talk about practicality is also the fact that this can play as a small piece that is going to last a bit of time. So you can make this actually play up to something that's going to last 2-3 minutes, or you can just pick and choose a phase of this. You can just do the first word on the page. You could just do the last word on the page. You can just do the you can mix and match the ways that these effects work. You don't have to do the whole thing every single time. You can even do it to 3 spectators. You hand the book to one spectator, think of the word on the first line. Can you please give the book to the second spectator? Show him the poem that you chose. Can you read it and get a color and a feeling from the poem? Pass the poem and show them what poem it is to the last person and think of the last word. And boom, you can do a 3-person type effect without any issues whatsoever. Once you also know how this works, and if you're a bit well versed in mentalism, you can even be even more kind of innovative. You can also throw in some other wrenches. You can actually, as I said, you can do it as a drawing duplication, or you can use some pieces of information here as a one head, right? Because of some of the principles here. So you can use certain things to your advantage, which is absolutely great, right? So there is so much that you can do with this, but overall, practicality wise, it is very good. Now let's talk about where do you perform. So where would you perform Triadic? Triadic can work pretty much anywhere where you would perform a book test. As I said, with this one, if you want to actually ship it to someone, you can actually do this through Zoom or through phone if you would so like. But if not, you can do this anywhere, close up, casual, table hopping. You can do this stage, parlor, cabaret, wherever you want. Wherever you perform a book test, you can perform Triadic with no problems. Now that we've talked about all of this, let's go over the positives and negatives of Triadic. Let's first start off with the negatives. There's not many negatives of Triadic. There's only 2 things that you do have to keep in mind. One, you don't want someone rummaging through the book and going through it a bit too extensively, because they will possibly find out a few things, right? This is not like some other book test, like for example, the Zanman book test, which is made as a literal book. So someone can literally read every single page and they will not find anything. Whereas here, if they do read every single page, they will find certain things or certain repeating patterns that you need to be aware of. So it can pass a quick inspection, but not much more. Secondly, I do think it's a very cool idea to have the instructions at the end of the book, but I also think that if ever a spectator is a bit more interesting and he goes over and wants to choose a page at the end, right, or something like that and be a smartass, having the instruction there is interesting, but it also could possibly, if you're really doing this to a heckler and he wants to choose, you know, for example, be a smartass and choose like the last page of kind of the book and say, oh, but it says that this is written about like a poem or whatever, you know, it could be something to keep in mind, even if you give it to someone to inspect, if they go through the last pages. Again, this is me just thinking of a magician and being, you know, overly cautious. I don't think it's going to be a problem, but I do think it would have been a bit better to just have it given to you as a PDF and have the book completely with just the poems, and that's it. But it's not a big problem. It is justified and it's fine. It shouldn't be an issue, but it is something to keep in mind. But having said that, let's go over the positives. So what are the positives of TRIADIC? One, it is very interesting. A book of poems, doing a book test with a book of poems is very cool. I've not seen that done before. The methods applied here are absolutely great. The fact that you can springboard the principles off here into even more is absolutely great. The difficulty, the fact that it's so easy is absolutely nice. It's practical. It can be done pretty much anywhere. And most importantly, I do think that this is very fooling and very engaging to your spectators. I do think this is very, very good. So to wrap it up, let's give it kind of if I would recommend this and what do I rate it out of 10. So would I recommend TRIADIC? I think that if you like book tests and you like what you saw, I heavily recommend TRIADIC. This is actually something that is going to be going in my carrying case next to my Great Gatsby book test by Zandman, which is my go-to and has been my go-to for years. This is going to be actually added next to it because I think it is absolutely fantastic and I really like the workings and the method and the simplicity of this because it lets you play on the presentation so much more than some other book tests do. I think it's absolutely great. Yes, I recommend it if you're into purchasing a new and very fun book test. So what am I giving it out of 10? I am giving TRIADIC a 9.25 on 10. It is very, very, very good and I really, really like it and I will be using it. So as always, if you have any questions, leave them down below. If not, see you all in my next review. Like and subscribe and I'll see you all then. Have a great one. Bye bye.